All right, a very good morning to you. Welcome, and thank you very much for joining us on the next program this morning, which is the Current Affairs program coming to you from the stable of 24 News Radio and Television at Dwekiti. My name is Olushola Oyewole, and the program is Crossfire. Well, Crossfire is a discussion program where we bring on prominent people, well-versed people, well-informed people to talk about pertinent issues and situations in the country. Today, we're taking a critical and a very hard look at the ADC, the new bride when it comes to party, the so-called coalition, the AD coalition or the ADC or the coalition. In any case, let me quickly introduce our guest this morning. He is none other than Mr. Jide Ojo, a very prominent and well-informed public affairs analyst who is sought after across the length and breadth of the country as far as radio and television stations are concerned. Mr. Ojo, good morning, sir, and thank you so much for joining us at very short notice. It's a pleasure to have you on Crossfire on 24 News Radio and Television. Good morning to you, sir.
Yeah, good morning. Yeah, good morning.
Thank you so much for joining us on the program. Well, like I said, our focus this morning is the ADC, the new bride, and of course the coalition that is giving some people sleepless nights and also giving some people a great deal of laughter. Well, let me start by asking you, Mr. Ojo, the ADC, as it were, do you think it's a good choice, moving on vis-a-vis the 2027 election? Or would you rather say that perhaps the already existing parties would have done better by regrouping and consolidating and moving on?
I didn't quite get that question.
Yes, I did say that the ADC, which is the new bride in terms of political parties in Nigeria, would you say is a good choice for those who are aspiring to oust the incumbent president? Or would you rather say that they would have done better by regrouping, in terms of the already existing parties and moving forward from there?
Okay. Thank you. ADC is I will you give them benefit of doubt. It's one of the already registered political parties and been in existence for 20 years. Registered political for 20 years. This is a party that was registered in year 2000 and has been contesting election. So, what happened in 2020 when so moved to join APP, we moved to join this is just what juggernauts who have teachers I want to call them. And allowed in a democracy, people ahead of better election move to where to be most at. And is what we are saying ADC. Let me tell us it's not the first time that ADC will be the platform to contest them. In 2019, former President Olusegun Obasanjo actually endorsed ADC as the platform for the third force to contest 2019 general elections. But it didn't achieve much success. But I'm not sure whether it came to fifth. But in this current dispensation, given the caliber of people who have joined forces with ADC, you are talking of former number 2 citizen, former number 3 citizen, former number 4 citizen. When I say former number 4, I'm talking of Aminu Tambuwa. When I say number 3, I'm talking of David Mark, who was president of Senate for 2 terms. When I say number 2, I'm talking of Atiku Abubakar. These are very experienced politicians. In the mix is also someone like Rotimi Amechi, who have spent 24 years of power. We also have former commissioner, former governor of times, so these are people who are battle ready, who are well tested in electoral democracy. They may not be when they could be referred as yesterday's men, but nonetheless, they have paid their. You underrate them. That I can't hear you, please.
Or should I say the coalition, in a bid to oust the sitting president, the incumbent president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And I want to ask you, would you, as somebody who is very observant and well attuned to political happenings, would you say that this is in the interest of the people, the average Nigerian, or for selfish and personal interests?
Well, obviously, it's not for any altruistic purpose. These people had the opportunity of being in government, for 24 years, some of lost. Someone like David Mark had been everything you can be in politics and governance, starting with being a former military administrator in Niger State in the 80s, former minister of communication, former Senate, former president for it. Question is, what did they do? What did he do when he was what were the impacts? Is number 3 citizen? What impact did he have in his home state of Benue and among his Sidoma people? Even the former number 2 citizen, Atiku Abubakar, what is his number impact that he made on the of Adamawa State, where he came from? Right now, we learned he's at loggerheads with his state governor, Fintiri, who just got in at the lift of his Waziri Adamawa. We also have people like Anita in Syria for 8 years. From 2 years ago. So, people who get a table, get a chair at the table, what to do is, and they are the cost of the matter. Anyone that thinks the cost of the matter, these are people who are government for decades. They cannot survive. And so what they are make sure that continue to able to television, and some of candidates then can go come number 2 or and these are legitimate holders. Terms of whether for the interest I have my doubts. It's more about self than for any altruistic.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Ojo. Well, we've been talking about the persons, the leadership, quote unquote, of the ADC, or should I say the emerging leadership. Now, you took them one by one. You spoke about Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. You spoke about the former governor and former minister, Ralph Aregbesola. You spoke about Rotimi Amechi and all of that. But you see, you also mentioned the fact that one can actually question what impact they made while they were in government. In any case, that is neither here nor there. But I now want to ask you, sir, at this material point in time, do you think it is fair or justifiable for any right thinking Nigerian to want to oust the incumbent president after 2 years against the backdrop of 16 years or what have you, or well, so many years of uncertainty? Well, for the change, things seem to be taking shape properly. But Nigerians are rather very impatient and they're whipping up sentiments. So, sir, what is your take on that?
My, the truth is, equality and morality, like all and one. There's no politics. I've had to question whether someone I will have assuming his foreign position by uh, 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 Penkeleme of power. He was from that, but the point that training security reports happening security denied them opportunity. So the um, I will not blame element to our government. One of the critical pillars of the party is to fund not just like set for position of power, and you cannot blame them for want to the incumbent government within their legitimate right, in as much as they are not forming it's not a military takeover. If it's going to be a takeover through the ballot box, it's welcome development. Don't forget that the only one of the key pillars of democracy is multi-party system. In a multi-party democracy, you must contest for election. There is no political party that is what is onions that will be registered and will say, I'm not going to contest election. Then you are just an association. You are just like a civil society. So what makes a difference for a political party is to contest elections. Whether it wins that election or fails to win is a secondary and mooted issue. But the bottom line is that parties exist to contest not just ideas, but to contest for power. And it's within the legitimate right of ADC, like every other 18 other registered political parties, to contest or choose to not contest all positions. Even when we had 91 political parties, only 74 of them decided to contest for presidential election. But they contested other layers of election. They contested the Senate, they contested House of Reps, they contested State House of Assembly. Area council election is coming in February 2026, I guess, either January or February. The 19 political parties will be fielding candidates. So the bottom line is that whether the incumbent is performing or not performing, it is not for the opposition to glamorize the incumbent. Just the same way the current government was not glamorizing the Goodluck Jonathan government. They did not glamorize the government of Obasanjo. They did not glamorize or lionize the government of from late Umar Musa. So oppositions are meant to denigrate, to the market, to demonize the incumbent. So it's for the people, ordinary citizens, the electorate, to now choose whether they want to stay with the incumbent or they want to change. So it's within their democratic right. Like I said, unless the only thing that's not permissible in a democracy is military takeover or forceful takeover of government. And that's not what is at plot or what is being plotted by the APC. So it's within their right to contest. Let's see how much effort, how much success their effort will yield.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for that submission once again. Well, let's now talk about the legal implication and the rules of engagement as it were. Until recently, most of these juggernauts in the political scene were card-carrying members of different parties. At what time did they cross or did they port to the ADC? What proper measures or proper steps have they taken to be bona fide members of the ADC? Now they're being referred to as leaders of the ADC. Should this be happening in our political scenery in Nigeria in this day and age? That's my question now, because it's rather confusing. Up until this time, the ADC had its own leadership, which was rather well unsung in the manner of speaking and not too visible. But all of a sudden, people are coming from different walks of life. Well, this is a collaboration of straight bedfellows, if you ask me. But nonetheless, do you think this will actually stand the test of time, sir? That's my question.
Well, whether it stand the test of time for the electorate to determine. It's like you're asking me why do we have so many media organizations when the existing ones are struggling to survive? Why do people still continue to establish radio activity? So the point is, human beings are social animals, and you cannot, if you want to box them in and say no. When you talk about rule of law stands on three pillars. It's constitutionalism, which otherwise is called the supremacy of the law. Then there is equality before the law, and then there is fundamental human rights. One of the fundamental human rights that the Constitution has extended to you and I is to aggregate, to associate. I think section 40 of 40, section 40 and 42 of the Constitution allows people to associate, freedom of association, freedom of press, freedom of speech is allowed. So the issue is about whether what I want to address is whether the leaders of it has a smooth transition. The point is, I totally was shocked. I was totally shocked to see the transition. It was a bumpy and turbulent transition. Until last Wednesday or Thursday, the Mark was a carrying member of it. He did resign Thursday morning. I was on Silverman TV, something like the organization that morning, and I think that the last question I was asked was that there is a breaking news that David Mark has to resign his membership of CDC. And then by a few hours later, the man became the national chairman of a party that has been in existence for 20 years. This is not a newly formed party. This is a party that has been in existence, that has the House of Representatives, remember, Honorable Abedide or something from Kogi State. It was elected under ADC, and he came out yesterday that he's one of the representatives of ADC, and he wants to carry it along. The publicity secretary of ADC, promoting his name, using the press statement about the US that this is a political hijack, that the platform was being hijacked, and there are things that money must have been changed now for this to take place. Even though Bolaji Abdullahi is carrying publicity secretary said they have been discussing with ADC for 18 months. Even if it's discussing for 18 months, the proper fit thing to do is to go through into a good process. People are supposed to have resigned their membership of their party first, and then there should be a national working committee of ADC where the chairman and his members, all of them will be in agreement to a meeting. There should be a meeting of the meeting of NWC where they all agree that they want to step down, resign for new leadership to take over. But I'm not saying anything of course. So it's like in the category, they are presidential candidates in 2023 have said that these people came into the back door and that they didn't do the proper scenario to be able to support in the committee. So it's going to be a tough. But I'm not saying anything of course. So it's like in the category, they are presidential candidates in 2023 have said that these people came into the back door and that they didn't do the proper scenario to be able to support in the committee. So it's going to be a tough. turbulent journey for ADC because even issues that are not big contentious are dragged across the court and drag up the Supreme Court. And they don't have the luxury of time because since they get bogged down by court orders from one court to court of appeal to the Supreme Court, they may not even have a presidential candidate in 2027 because if there is a faction and INEC decides that the wrong faction is the one that submitted list of candidates, then they have lost out because INEC is the registrar and the regulator of political parties. And unless there that there is the proper thing was done, have a set of interim leader in place. Otherwise, even as maybe Kasuke has told us that the case against former national chairman of the party, Ralph Okeowo, is in court, challenging the legitimacy of leadership that he has ceased to be the national chairman of the party. So there is already a function in APC, and now they back and forth came up with the wrong function. But it is the court that will finally see it of whether there is a smooth transition or a faulty transition, and you can force their transition to participate in this election, starting with even the election in APC and also state next year ahead of 2027. So they should be prepared for millions of this because, as I said, it's not even only their former presidential candidate that have pushed against this, even their national publicity secretary said to try their support.
Yes, thank you very much. Let's now talk some more about the personalities involved. Like you said, a former vice president, former ministers, former governors, former senators, and the likes. And all of them, each and every one of them, have one ambition or the other. Some of them inordinate. Don't you envisage an implosion, the whole thing falling apart even before it gets started? Because from all indications, nobody seems to be ready to step down for anybody. You have the likes of Amechi, who is not keeping anybody, in the dark as to his ambition. You have the perpetual contestant in the person of Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. You have Peter Obi, who wants to be president by every means, and all that. So, do you really see a situation where they will scale the initial hurdle of being able to arrange and organize themselves properly to be able to move forward?
That's the reason they are cheap. You see, you can't climb a tree on the top. You have to climb the tree on the bottom. The first step that ADC will face is the transition of to a more formal structure. What I mean by that is that I'm going without considering that all the party organs have agreed to step down. There will be congresses from the world level, to local government level, to state level, because there will be a national convention. Assuming they decide that, okay, those structures are unaffected, they don't have that their plan. It's only the NWC that is said to be reconstituted. Then they will have to have a national convention. And in having a national convention, they will have to have delegates to that convention. So all of this, with legislation, may be a hindrance to their rights. But never, even HCCS is so CCS of crisis now. Don't forget the resignation, sudden resignation of Mark
Ganduje.
About 2 weeks ago. And who takes over from Ganduje and because if APC does not get the facts together to have a very smooth and federally accountable person taking over the end of affairs in the APC, there could be an implosion between the APC. So we should not just conclude that all is as well with APC. APC is even more prime to than all the other institutions because the emigration into APC, pilgrimage into APC, is for self-interest, it's not for the interest of the people. These are people who are looking for second-term tickets or fourth-term or 10-time tickets. These are people who want contracts. These are people who want appointments. These are people who want influence, potential influence. And if they don't realize it, they will leave. They will leave. I've seen a governor of the party that moved into 3 political parties within a space of 2 months. And that person is Osengo Theodore. I don't know if you know him. He was the former governor of Abia. He came in under PPA. He won the election under PPA. He left PPA for Abia. When he saw that Abia wasn't too welcome, he left for PDP. And I think it started now. I think I know of the right Senate. He was a member of the Senate of the Federal Republic. So what I'm trying to tell you is that politics is a game of interest. You cannot conclude anything, and you underrate your opposition at your own peril. So it's not only the opposition that is trying for inclusion, even the ruling party is also facing impediment. Because don't forget that people like Malami, the former president, have said that they want to move out of the APC because their interests are still being well protected. And I think people spotted Malami as the APC that was held in Abuja last Sunday. So it also may sell some breakaway factor. APC may have a breakaway factor if it does not put itself in order. And again, there is also the people who are APC members in North Central who felt slighted that when Adamu Abdullahi was stand as the national chairman after the presidential election, someone from the North Central should have played the role to replace him. But President Tinubu decided to go and talk for the former government of Kano State, which didn't go that well with them. So all of the political parties have their own issues, and how they manage the conflict is how they would say much about what will happen to them for 2027.
Yes, okay, fine. You did mention the case of a governor who was a member of 3 different parties within the space of 2 months. Let's talk about cross-carpeting in the Nigerian political space. Don't you think it should be more regulated? Because as it is, anybody can just wake up in the morning and say, okay, I no longer belong to this party, I'm heading to this party, forgetting the party that made him or her prominent in the first instance. Now, this is creating a lot of concern and confusion. And as a matter of fact, people are just going around in circles. But don't you think the Nigerian polity will be better off if there is more regulation, much more stringent conditions? Look at the case of Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, a one-time vice president of this country. He's been a member of so many parties. One can't really remember, his journey, across the length and breadth of these parties. But I mean, shouldn't it be a bit more regulated? That's my question, sir.
Someone joke over the weekend. There's a joke circulating in the social media that is the waziri of defection, that he has defected to 5 different parties in the last 20 years. So, but for him, he's talking about somebody who is a serving member or who is an elected member currently, who are defected. The laws are clear. There is a section in profession which concludes defection by House of Rep, somebody from the House of Rep. And there are other provisions, but it says that unless the purpose, the reason for your defection is a factionalization of your party at the national level. Now, my brother, who activates that your defection is wrong? It's not just for your party to say your defection is wrong. It's for the court to say so. Now, what these people simply do is to orchestrate crisis at their national headquarters. And if you look by what is happening now, almost all the political parties have issues with their leadership. Even SDP, 2 weeks ago or thereabouts, SDP suspended its national chairman. There are 2 different factions in SDP. Labour Party has not been able to overcome its leadership crisis, while the faction led by Naledi Usman endorsing P to smart with ADC. The one led by Abure is threatening fire and brimstone that they are not for coalition. They are not interested in all this alliance. And then you move to PDP. It was just last week that PDP was able to hold the 400 next meeting, where the where the different factions tentatively shifted their thoughts to agree to reabsorb Samaya as national secretary, and now they are looking forward to planning a national convention for conference next month. So all of them that have issues, people will exploit this crisis to effect. But the one I agree with you, there has to be a alteration of our constitution, because this is a constitutional matter. There should be an alteration that will forbid anybody from cross-carpet things, or that will allow anybody that wants to defect, but you have to leave the seat that you won on the basis of the party from which you are defecting. So whether there is crisis in that party or there is no crisis in that party, if Shola you want to leave your party that brought you to office, you must leave that same seat. So there will now be another election which you can be free to contest, and if you win the election, all well and good. You know why that is the safest way to deal with this issue. And it will go across. It should not be just for legislative office. Because what is not currently criminalizing is for the legislative offices. As I told you, look at all the governors that have been defected. None have been ruled out in order by the court. Because there's nothing in the constitution that prevents the governor from defecting. And we have seen in recent past the governor of Akwa Ibom, governor of Delta, previously we have David from Ekoni, we have Ben Ayade from Cross River who have defected. And that is just in this current fourth republic. But none of them have been ruled out of order by the court, because there is no provision that forbids them. But the only people that are forbidden from defection are the members of the legislative assembly, where the constitution says unless there is a crisis at the national headquarters of your party. Now look at the technicality that they explore. If you move to the ruling party, you are safe. If you move out of the ruling party, you are unsafe. Because it is the principal office and the principal officer of the National Assembly, that's the President of the Senate, or the Speaker of House of Reps, or the Speaker of the State House of Assembly, that can declare your seat vacant. And if you move into his party, he will pretend that you have not committed any offense, so he will not declare your seat vacant. If you move out of his party, then he can say honorable so think is now vacant because he has vetted without due process. So that is the double standard that is at play. And INEC, even if INEC is aware, INEC is not conduct by election unless the relevant authorities take to that this defection and second state, and that it has been declared vacant. That was what happened with the State House of Assembly members in Rivers, where even the governor of the state said these people are no longer fit and proper to be member of the State House of Assembly. They have defected when there was no crisis. And they say, you are not the one to declare as speaker. But it is the speaker to declare those things and because of the defectors. So that was why it was so difficult to get out the seat of Rivers State House of Assembly members declared vacant. Now the solution lies in current constitutional officials. Now we have that provision that says that if you defect for whatever you will leave, you will forfeit your seat and have to pay the election. Because why? So that it will not say, in fact, the court not the law. It will not say when you cast your ballot, you are casting your ballot for the person, not for individual. That was why, despite the fact that Rotina did not campaign for the 2007 election, he was declared winner because the court said those votes are for the PDP, not for voting the Ministry of Election. Yeah. And that position was further reinforced by the Supreme Court in the case of Yahya Bello PDP leadership when he said the vote that was cast to the name of Prince Abubakar Audu to be buried with him after his death. And the court said, no, you cannot bury the vote with Abubakar Audu because that vote was for the APC, not for the person. And so, if truly you are voting for the party and you voted for the party to assume that office on behalf of the country, then the party reserves the right to ask you to leave that seat and have somebody replace you. But it may not be automatic that they just bring somebody to sit in and then replacement. The consultation will still have to take place, but let there be forfeiture of that seat, whether that of the governor, the president, vice president, let them forfeit that seat and go for a re-election. In which case, that party upon which you have resigned to join another party will have opportunity to field another candidate against you in your new party.
Yes, dear listener and dear viewer, I really must apologize to our guest and to you too for the poor audio quality. It has to do with the network. But nonetheless, the program is Crossfire, and we've been having Mr. Jide Ojo. The person or the personality or his policies. What exactly is the problem? After all, some people had 16 years, and they just went like that. His predecessor had 8 years, and the noise was not so loud. So if we're talking about performance or performances, what exactly is wrong with this present dispensation that people are so agitated and they're hell-bent on ensuring that this man that leads this administration is ousted come 2027? Your take on that, sir?
I'm sorry, I didn't say.
Come again? I said, I didn't quite hear you, sir.
I said I need the initial part of the question.
Okay, I said what exactly could be responsible for the insistence of, on ousting the incumbent president in terms of performance? What parameters are being used to assess what he's doing after a 2-year period, compared with people who had 15, 16 years in the saddle, and the noise was not so much. Even if you look at the case of his predecessor, General Muhammadu Buhari, who spent 8 years. Do you want to compare and contrast and then say, okay, maybe this is why the agitation is so much, or there is no basis for such agitation? That's actually my question, sir.
Okay. So I will just tell you, the point is there is a basic if you look at the differences of cost of living crisis, it's so serious and it's partly to the ordinary people. I don't know about the quality of life of many of the citizens in the last 3 years. The cost of living has been very exponential. And I don't think like you are based on. And on that basis of quite enough of but that's why you have to I believe I've said this in March. The government is never working to solve the game. You only win in not just in which is because sometimes they are putting an extra parties have been formed on the election. So the point for the aid of the effort is for the president to help with effort to mitigate the rent cost of living crisis in Nigeria. And it is not just limited to Nigeria. We think about 5 countries where the cost of living crisis are also short-lived the incident. Starting with US, did you know that apart from the age, which was an issue in the last election for Joe Biden, the presumption was that Joe Biden is not performing very well in the economy, and that there was a very cost of living crisis in the US, which is why uh, the people of America preferred to have a Donald Trump come back. And if you look at Ghana, the Supreme Party for 8 years lost the last election on the basis of everything possibility when the former president Mahatma won a second election after losing at two consecutive times to the Nana Akufo-Addo. Then you go to Ghana, Ola Shaw, the middle past chancellor of Ghana. I wanted to point out he couldn't win the election, and just now he got even the funding of ANC visit the last election, ANC coalition to form government because of the rising cost of living in South Africa. Yes, yes, it's good to happy. But if you look at it, and then it is 2024, they have lost a lot of ground to the opposition. Then go to UK. Why do you think that there were about 3 or 4 prime ministers of UK in about 5 years? It's because of the very cost of living from the time of Liz Truss to Rishi Sunak. Now you have and then Marcel. All of this in the last 5 years, we can find about 4 prime ministers. And this is all connected to the economy of that country. So, what I'm trying to let you know is that Nigeria has a genuine reason to be agitated and because nobody wants to continue to have a very differentiated quality of life and the high level of insecurity has currently been experienced. So, but it's a wake-up call for the ruling party not to be complacent and to rise up to mitigate the suffering of average citizens, so that even when the opposition brings a strong candidate, people will still prefer to have it. There is something called the devil you know is better than the saints you do not know. But what I'm trying to let you know, answering your question pointedly, is that you cannot say there are no basis for people to want to ask the incumbent president, because whether you have it, whether you like it or not, its macroeconomic policies have really seen the quality of life of average citizens. There is high level of poverty, high level of unemployment, high level of insecurity, high level of hunger. And so all of these things, they have recorded some growth. Growth does not equate development. Growth is not, it's just a driver of development. It does not equate development. So what we are experiencing right now is growth without development. And they said we have to go through the route like a labor plan, and the part of it that can make up for the pains of labor pain. But as it is said, when hope don't follow, you just want to. I mean, we were almost at the same point we were under Goodluck Jonathan, when people were saying anything but Jonathan, Jonathan. Even though with the benefit of hindsight, we said, oh, Jonathan was doing a thing in terms of Buhari. And that is why I wrote in my column in the Punch newspaper some 3-4 weeks ago that Nigerians, you are on your own. Because when you look at the cost of living crisis, it's been getting worse by successive administration. And look at from the time Baba Ogunde released that song about high cost of living, And people like Chief Ebenezer Obey, people like iLife Minstrel, Dr. Abimbola Olaya sang that song, Ilule Kosowolode, or the Formula 010 by Peter, by Ebenezer Obey, or the popular Suffering and Smiling, released in 1978 by Fela Anikulapo Kuti. What has changed? Successive administration has been worse than the previous one. So the bottom line is for the APC and President Bola Tinubu to buckle up and ameliorate the suffering of ordinary citizens of Nigeria. Otherwise, I will not put it out of reach of the opposition to upset the apple cart in 2027.
Hello, sir. Yes, you there?
Plus one.
Yeah. Sorry, we had to just reboot the system because of the poor network. I do sincerely apologize for that. Well, our time is almost fast spent, but I just want to move on to something that has to do with the Nigerian politics as well. It is a known fact that since the coming on board of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the allocation to states has tripled, if not more. But some states are still going borrowing. What is the justification for that? Because I don't really understand. At a point in time, states could borrow of their own free volition because perhaps the money was not enough. But when the allocation is now being tripled, and they can't really justify what the allocation is being spent on or what is being used for, and they still go out borrowing, to the tune of hundreds of millions. Where do we go from here, Mr. Ojo? Well, what's your take on that?
My take is that you cannot blame the state of government because the front office is the one the back one to use to pay. The president himself is setting a bad precedent. When he cajoles them that subsidy is gone and he has to remove subsidy, the assumption was that it will reduce borrowing and will be able to deliver more infrastructure. But Look at how much President Bola Tinubu has borrowed in the last 2 years. It's humongous. Now Shola, we are servicing our debt almost the same amount as we are using for capital projects, for capital expenditure. And that is very concerning to me. If you say, oh, the removal of subsidy and the floating of naira has been, it has made our more money available to the state. The question you should ask is, what's the exchange rate? If you are doing a contract, if you are doing a 100 kilometer route, and your initial projection is that it's going to cost 30 billion. With the devaluation of the currency, there is every likelihood that the contractor will come back for contract review, because if he has to import anything, look at the exchange rate. Before this transition took over, the exchange rate was about 600 naira, 700 naira to $1. Today, the central bank is struggling to keep the naira at 1,600 naira to $1. So everything that you have to import, and you know many of the, including bitumen, we have to import bitumen, we have to import so many things that are used in construction. And when you look at how much the exchange rate is, it's normal and natural that it will cost more to do the same kilometers of road than it did 2 years ago, given the devaluation of the currency. And like I said, the president himself is very good and prudent manager of resources. God say, why did he need 50 ministers? Why did he need to go and be creating additional ministries, departments, and agencies? Look at it, the fact that he created Ministry of Livestock Development. Now, this year, he has signed into law additional 5 development commissions to complement the North-East Development Commission. And that is even, and an extra one was even established for the South-South Development and South-South region. Aside from the Niger Delta Development Commission, which has 9 states, you now have the specific South-South Development Commission, you have South-East Development Commission, you have South-West Development. All of these are going to flop millions of naira in funding.
Money.
So we cannot too consistent the state governors who are also borrowing. And don't forget, the election is second. They need to have a war test to prosecute the next round of elections. So I'm not surprised that the governors are actually taking a shift on the federal government.
Yes, on a final note, perhaps I should just ask you. So, what is your piece of advice to the ordinary man on the street? Because these things are massing up now, and when two elephants fight, in a manner of speaking, it is the grass that suffers. So, what is your advice for the average Nigerian on the street? In the countdown to the 2027 election, when things are not likely to improve or get better.
But that may not be very definitely that things will not improve or get better. If things will improve and get better, it is in the hands of the handlers of the economy and the governance structures of this country. And 11,082 of them that are holding the destiny of this country on their hands. Yes, I think both to say that you have 8,809 councillorship positions, you have 768 local government and 6 area councils making 774. You have now 93 state house of assembly members. You have 109 senators. You have 360 house of reps members. You have 36 governors, and you have 1 president. Those are the handlers of the country. And if you add all these people together, it gives you 11,000. And they are the ones that are running the affairs of this country, from bottom to top, or from top to bottom, whichever way you want to put it. So it is for them to work in the larger interest of the people rather than their own personal aggrandizement. If our politics have been politics of principle, we will not be where we are now. About a month and a half ago, I wrote in my column in the Punch newspaper about the 7 social sins of Mahatma Gandhi. And one of the 4 7 social sins is politics without principle. We ignore politics of personal aggrandizement, politics that adopt the use of Machiavellian principle of the end justifies the means. Let me get power at all costs. You ask me whether the ADC promoters are selfless and meant well for the people. No, they want to be on the front row. They want to have share at the dining table. It's all about their own personal aggrandizement. It's all about setting their own net. And that's not what policy is supposed to be. Policy should be about service. So the bottom line is that we should not just have this fetishism that there is a Messiah at the corner. Eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. We are the one that must hold them accountable. And that is where the media and civil society need to partner. We need to work jointly to oversee the affairs of this country. All the ministries, departments, and agencies must be properly oversighted by us, because all the National Assembly does is just a kind of coronation and endorsement when they say they go on oversight functions. Many a times they go there to feather their own neck. So, with the salvation of this country is in the hands of you and I. As members of the media and civil society, we must partner to do proper oversight. We must think, we must. I mean, this is the time we need the investigative journalists of Delegi Wayara that can go behind the news stories, that can go behind press statements to dig up facts and figures about cost of projects, about implementation of projects, about what is being done, by people at the end of affairs. And this is not the time to just focus on Tinubu and Tinubu alone. We have 36 governors. We have local government. I thought that it has about 17 local governments. We must also be interested in what those local governments, chairmen and councillors, what are they doing? Shola, I know from my look of view, you possibly grew up in the era of village headmaster. That,
yeah, well, I guess you're right. Yes, you're right.
There was a character that Councillor Balogun. Councillor Balogun is enfant terrible. It's a Tommy Petre who does not he does not book any. He's a no-nonsense person, and that is a village. In that soap opera, you talk about the council, the school, the traditional institutions, and the markets. All of them, are kind of portraying how people can engage in the local governance system. And that's what we need to do. We need to engage our councillors, our local government chairpersons, our state governors, before we poke our nose into what is happening at the federal level. Otherwise, we will miss it, because there is so much eye on the presidency, on the federal government. We have so much concentration, flag lights, and beaming attack lights on the president and the National Assembly. What about our state honorables? All the honorable members of the state assembly, can we also beam our satellites on their performance? How are they performing their oversight function? How is the governor performing his constitutional role and duties? What did they use the borrowing, the loans that they took? What did they use it for? Can we see physical development of what was spent, what the loans that they are taking, what was used for? So this accountability and transparency, demand, it's not just to be left to one individual stakeholder. It's a multi-stakeholder engagement we must have for there to be better governance system in our country. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Ojo. I wish this could go on and on, but well, time is not our friend, and I really must express our sincere gratitude and appreciation to you for joining us at a very, very short notice. It's been a pleasure talking to you on Crossfire on 24 News Radio and Television. We thank you so much for your time. Well, if you ask me, I'll tell you that Mr. Jide Ojo, our guest this morning, is indeed a repository of knowledge when politics is concerned in Nigeria, and he said so much. And of course, we'll be taking a cue from a few things that he said. Well, those of us in the media industry I'm talking about. So on that note, we want to wrap it up this morning on Crossfire. Do keep a date with us again, same time next week, Monday, for another edition of the program. Until then, keep watching and keep listening to 24 News. Thank you so much, Mr. Ojo, and do have a wonderful week. Good morning.
A week after. Thank you.